eating psychopathology amongst athletes. You're going to want to pay attention. Today we're doing axle push press. I'm just feeling a little bit like I want to move more into more strong I'm feeling a little more like I want to move more into strongman style training. So with strongman, you basically do the press and move the weight any way you can. And that means doing push presses, jerk presses, however you can get the weight above your head. So, starting out today with some axle push press. I got the sleeves on because my joints don't feel great. They're kind of achy, a little bit cold. So here we go. Feeling good. So, athletes and disordered eating. First of all, the prevalence of disordered eating is trending up according to a recent 2025 literature review. Right now, men have a prevalence of about 2%, women have a prevalence of about 8%, everybody overall. Whew. But athletes as a subgroup have the highest vulnerability to overeating. For instance, men who are athletes have the same vulnerability to overeating as women who are not athletes. In a study in Norway among Norwegian athletes, 1,600 Norwegian athletes compared to a control group, those athletes all showed, well, I don't know if they all showed, but on average, there was a significantly higher vulnerability to disordered eating or eating psychopathology or eating pathology than there was to the people in the control group. So in general, athletes, men and women, have a higher probability, a higher vulnerability to disordered eating patterns, behavior, and thinking. All right, I got to rest for a minute now. you want to compete the way you train. Or if I can train the way you compete. All right. So, what makes athletes so vulnerable to disordered eating? Well, number one, exercise. Interestingly enough, the more you exercise as an athlete, combined with other factors, of course, the more at risk you are to engage in disordered eating. It's kind of a weird paradox. They found that a typical population who exercises as much as elite athletes, and they placed that exercise number at about 23 times per month, they found that increased the level of psychopathology, or mental health issues. And mental health issues, psychopathology, in given populations is highly related to disordered eating. So, first reason athletes have problems with disordered eating or are vulnerable to it is the fact that they exercise so much. It can easily lead into binge eating, compensatory behaviors in which you're trying to maintain a certain weight. It can lead into obsessions about exercising and eating. Another reason that athletes are highly vulnerable to disordered eating is social pressures from teams or, well, now social media, in which they're trying to achieve some perfect body type. There's also the stress related to being an athlete, especially if you're competitive, and even more so if you're elite, in which you're trying to win, you're trying to perform. Your payday is based on your eating and your performance and how you look sometimes. Maybe you have the stress of an abusive coach, or the stress of peers, athlete peers. All of that stress, combined of course with external stressors of balancing athlete versus being not an athlete outside of the performance area, outside of exercise, outside of competition, you have all this stress that can lead to disordered eating. And so you have to really be careful of that. All right, on we go. We're adding weight. Woohoo! Oh, fuck! All right. We are going to start doing fives, because I'd really like to do a good deal of work on these, but I don't want my triceps to run out. And we've all seen what happens when my tricep gets a little cranky, right? So, up the weight a little bit. off we go. Wow, those are feeling really good. So, we've got some vulnerability factors in terms of disordered eating among athletes. There are also personality factors. One of the first, interestingly enough, is high tolerance to pain, high tolerance to distress, high tolerance to discomfort. Athletes tend to either not feel as much pain, ignore the pain, have a lot of social support in overlooking pain. Athletes, especially at the elite level, will simply override pain. And all you have to do is look at strongman athletes, football players, bodybuilders. Look at elite rugby players, elite football/soccer players. It's easy to see that an elite athlete probably has the mental capacity to override the feelings of hunger or the feelings of pain associated with over-satiation, in which they binge, to see that high pain tolerance is going to really increase your probability for overeating, starvation eating, hunger, being hungry excessively, attempting to develop a body of leanness. So, yeah, the first characteristic or personality trait of athletes that makes them vulnerable is having a high pain tolerance. My spatial awareness is pretty low. All right, hey, we need to clarify something. What is disordered eating, number one? Because a lot of what I'm talking about, you see bodybuilders do, you see strongmen do, you see a lot of athletes in various sports engage in these behaviors. But technically, disordered eating is eating too much or too little chronically, while either engaging in compensatory behaviors like purging or compulsive exercise or laxative, significant use of laxatives. And the thing to remember is restraining calories is not disordered eating. Controlling your eating is not disordered eating. Disordered eating, like I said, is either too much or too little and or compensatory behaviors compared to a typical human being outside of being an athlete. And, this is the important part, the behavior becomes clinically significant. It either impairs you medically, physically, or contributes to significant dysfunction in daily living. That's how generally psychiatrists will look at disordered eating. And the problem with disordered eating is that the people who are doing it don't see it as disordered. The people who are doing it, for instance, bodybuilders, see it as their job. But by definition, all pro bodybuilders are disordered eaters. So that's one of the big difficulties, is there's a lack of self-perception and self-awareness when it comes to disordered eating. And that could be for any number of reasons. Coaches, peers, the purpose of the eating behavior in and of itself. So this is a big reason why athletes are vulnerable to disordered eating, because they think certain eating habits within the community of athletes are okay. They're normalized, but in the wider scope of the universe, they're disordered and essentially not healthy for you. And once again, I'm not talking about restraining calories so that you can be healthier. For instance, losing fat, going on some type of really healthy diet where you have a coach that's helping you and you're losing maybe a pound a week, half a pound a week, maybe even less, but you're on this losing trajectory where you're losing fat and you're actually becoming healthier because you've changed eating lifestyle. You're not just restricting calories. The other thing is PEDs mess up this whole disordered eating thing, because PEDs will compensate for the physiological and medical effects that disordered eating will have on you. Elite athletes take PEDs many times to offset things like high blood pressure, to offset glucose intolerance, to offset poor liver functioning, to offset poor kidney functioning, to offset your body's thermogenic adaptation. So that's what we're actually talking about, okay? All right. That'll be fun. Yeah. That went way better than I thought it would. I'm real happy with that. 1, 2, 3, test. My other freaking mic gave out and I didn't realize it. So, the first part of this video does not have great sound quality, and I apologize for that. But frankly, I'm not redoing the lecture, or the discussion, or the chat. All right, I think we're going to do 3s this time, because I want to get some more work out of my tricep. Here we go. Nope. Well, that was fun. All right, let's talk about the next factor involved in disordered eating in athletes. Honestly, I'm disappointed in that. I didn't think the tricep had gotten tired, but yeah. Another factor in eating disorder among athletes is being highly competitive. Competitive to the point where it's dysfunctional. It actually gets in the way of performance. Where you're more competitive, you're so looking at the outcome and comparing yourselves to others that you miss the target completely. But you can't stop being competitive, and it ends up significantly impairing daily functioning. That is a high risk factor for disordered eating. And let's be very honest, Derek Lunsford fits right in there. Current Mr. Olympia. He also embodies the next personality characteristic, which is perfectionism. Nothing can go wrong. I have to be the most lean. I have to be the most muscular. I have to be, everything has to be perfect. I have to look a certain way. I have to feel a certain way. I cannot fail. I cannot fall. I cannot succeed unless everything is done a particular way, in a particular time, to a particular point. And athletes will many times chase that in their nutrition and in their dieting and their food consumption. And so they're constantly correcting, overdoing, underdoing, correcting, and it leads to disordered eating. All right, I'm going to take a rest and decide whether I want to try this weight again or not. Be safe. I dropped the weight. I still want to finish out all my sets, but I'd like to finish them out in a halfway decent way. So, like it or not, my tricep was giving out. So we dropped the weight and keep pushing. I know about where I'm at. And I can start pushing strength from that spot. And start pushing some goals. And I'm happy. All right. Yeah, that was good. So, in regards to disordered eating among athletes, be aware, basically, of all the things that come with athletics. Develop some internal perspective. You got to manage your stress. Maybe hopefully your coach can teach you how to do that or help you do that. And parents, be aware of your kiddos' eating habits. Parents need to pay attention to their athletes. Stop buying into some of the disordered eating stuff that's going on, because in the long run, it's damaging, or potentially damaging. I don't want to say it for sure is, but potentially damaging. So disordered eating among athletes is a big deal. Athletes are at high risk to develop disordered eating. Disordered eating can significantly impact your medical status, your physical status, your mental health status, your relationship status. So some things I would suggest is have a good coach. Maybe even get a mental skills coach or a sports psychologist that you can consult with once in a while. The other thing is, I would start some kind of awareness program. Pay attention to yourself. Spend 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day doing focused awareness training. Some refer to it as meditation or mindfulness. The other thing is use a notebook or a journal of some type so that you can look back and go, oh wow, I'm starting to get into some not great behaviors here. If you struggle with self-awareness. And I'll tell you what, I'm even seeing myself on this path to losing 100 pounds. I'm on the edge of really starting to get kind of disordered. One of the things that I grew up with doing, well, when I was in college, I really started this. I started it in high school, is going as long as possible without eating. And then kind of chunking all my calories at about 9 o'clock at night. It used to be pretty disordered because it would be binge worthy. And I would eat like 4,000 calories between, 5 and 11 p.m. It's managed now, but the whole going as long as I can without eating is not the healthiest way to do things. And it's like at the doorway of being disordered. Like yesterday, I didn't really want to eat at all. And on top of the fact that you get motivation and dopamine from the success of dropping a pound, dropping 2 pounds, I'm like, I'll just not eat today. That's not healthy. You got to have food, micronutrients and macronutrients to fuel your body. And I need to fuel my brain. I'm doing these videos, I'm doing lectures, I have a job that I have to use my brain for. So you start tracking your behavior, not necessarily by logging every moment or every emotion, but pay attention. That's a big deal. Get a coach that you know will pay attention to what you're doing and not enable you to abuse yourself, so to speak. A really good example of this is in the elite bodybuilding coach of Urs Kalsinski, his boss of Outlaw, who basically told Urs, I would rather have you happy doing bodybuilding than have you harm yourself by cutting weight severely and trying to go down and do classic physique. He said, I would rather see you quit bodybuilding and pursue your business than have you harm yourself long term. In bodybuilding, that's a coach worth having at the elite level. So my final thoughts are just pay attention and put some things in place so that you don't get into disordered eating in the first place. Peace.